It's like there was a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. The angel was saying, dude, you're awesome. You're a great guy. Lots of girls like you from online dating. Why? So just go up and say hi to her. And the little devil was like, oh no, she might reject you. You might get embarrassed. So basically the devil stabbed the angel with a pitchfork in my mind. And I didn't talk to her. And she got up and walked out. And I remember her walking out of the Starbucks. And I thought, man, there's the 1,000th attractive, possibly single woman I wanted to approach in my life, but didn't. I was so frustrated and I didn't understand the internal reasons for that. And I now do understand them, and I'll share those with our listener in a second.
Welcome to the Leverage Podcast, where we give you men's dating advice that doesn't suck. I'm your host, Robbie Kramer, a personal growth junkie and dating coach for over 15 years. Tune in each week to learn from the best to make yourself more attractive and confident with the opposite sex, to meet your perfect 10, and design a lifestyle that makes all your buddies jealous. Before we dive into this week's content, I want to let you guys know we've opened up a few slots in our exclusive mastermind program called the Leverage Program. We're accepting applications if you want to join our select group of men and experience the radical power of accountability to stop procrastinating on your goals, cross off everything on your sexual bucket list, and become a beast who gets more shit done. To learn more and apply, go to innerconfidence.com/leverage. Also, if you're digging our content, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to this. But if you don't feel it's worthy of a 5-star review, just go ahead. Don't leave any review at all. So let's dive in. Hey, fellas, welcome back. You know, you guys have probably noticed that the world has changed for what it takes for a modern man to have abundance. You know, 100 years ago, you could be a middle-class guy, which meant you probably had servants. And now being a middle-class guy doesn't even get you laid in most places. It's harsh on men who haven't recognized that, and very few have. Today, we've got a very cool guest who definitely has. His name is Connell Barrett. He helps men connect with women by unlocking their most confident, authentic selves. No creepy pickup tricks needed. He's the author of the #1 bestseller, Dating Sucks, But You Don't, a step-by-step guide for men. And Connell has also appeared on Today, Good Morning America, and he's an advisor to AskMen.com, which is a pretty big deal. And you can also find him on datingtransformation.com, where he also has a podcast, which I'll be appearing on shortly, and I'm really excited for that. So, Connell, welcome.
Hey, Robbie, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to our chat. We were talking last week offline about, we've both been in the, I hate to say in the game, but in this work for a really long time.
The seduction arts.
Exactly.
No, just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know I got into this stuff in like 2005, 2006. And I remember you were telling me it was a similar time frame, and we were kind of, shooting the shit on all the old school stuff that we did. So yeah. Let's hear your story. How'd you get into this stuff? Take us back through memory lane.
I got into this at the exact time as you. I was at the time in my mid 30s, and I had just come out of a long relationship that was a bad breakup, and I was ready to go out and be single again. And I'd always come from a place of feeling like I had a scarcity of dating options. From high school through college, well into my 20s and 30s, I just felt like I wasn't that guy women found romantically attractive. I thought I was too introverted. I doubted my ability I wasn't that masculine, quote unquote, alpha male. I wasn't the big muscular guy. That created a lot of self-doubt, and I had a lot of dating struggles that were all about lack of confidence. So I really struggled with dating, and I settled for some relationships that I didn't want to be in. I even got married once for 9 weeks. Wow. 9 weeks after, yeah, I settled for a woman, and we got married. And 9 weeks after we got married, she left me for a rugged man on a motorcycle with a mustache. And that left me feeling like, oh man, I gotta figure this out. Yeah, one sentence you never want to hear on your honeymoon is, hey, I think I saw your wife in the back of another guy's Harley. Not something you want. That
movie, Daddy's Home. Did you see that one?
Daddy's Home. No, I haven't seen that.
Will Ferrell. It's a similar sort of plot, motorcycle alpha guy. But anyway, sorry, go on.
No, it's all good. So this big relationship ended, and I said, you know what? I got to figure out my dating life. I just wanted to date women who I was attracted to and feel more attractive myself. So long story short, in the mid 2000s, I said, okay, time to start really actively working on my dating life. I went online and started Googling, searching for tips, coaches, people who know about this. And I got into the learning about dating world that way. But it all came from a place of feeling like I was unworthy, unattractive to women, and wanting to learn how to be more attractive to women and choose a great relationship or a great girlfriend instead of settle, which is what I'd already done, which I'd always done up to that point.
Right. So yeah, where'd you go first? What was back in the at that time, that was around that same time, right? 2005, 2006,
Yeah.
you said?
Yep.
Like there wasn't a lot out there, I remember. There was a lot of pickup stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
is that kind of like I had a tough time finding stuff that was kind of authentic to me. How did that go for you?
I think the first influencer, that not that they used that term back then, but a guy who went by the name of David D'Angelo,
Mm-hmm.
whose brand was the quote cocky funny. Well, his brand was double your dating.
Right.
And he was all about be cocky and funny with women. And that at the time was the only dating advice I'd ever gotten. I found that it resonated with me because for me, I was with my friends and family, people I was comfortable with. I wasn't cocky, but I was a bit of a smartass. A lot of jokes. I have a snarky, cheeky sense of humor, but I wasn't showing that to women. I was afraid to. I would go out on dates, so I started going out on dates that I got from online dating, and I took some tips that were out there, and I started getting dates on Match.com. And this is back when Match.com was. This is back when it wasn't like 3 swipes, 3 messages, and you're out on a date. This was like, let's email back and forth for 13 days, long emails, and then have a date. So it took a while to go out on a date. But David D'Angelo's content, even though it was sort of one size fits all, and not everybody should be quote cocky and funny, that did help me because that gave me permission to say, hey, Connell, why don't you be a little bit cheeky or be the smart ass on dates you are with your friends and with your family, and see how women respond to that. And that helped me have some much better first dates. Like I remember I had a first date with a really cute girl named Katie. This is in the mid double zeros. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be a bit more snarky, more sarcastic. And I let that side come out, and she liked it. She thought it was maybe it was a bit of a bad boy side coming out, and she just liked the fact that I was willing to tease her. And I remember the text that I sent her after our date. I sent her a text message, and it said, hey, Katie, I just wanted to say that you had a really good time last night and you want to see me again. And
that's funny.
She wrote back and like LOL that, and even said, oh my God, I showed your text to my friend. We love it. And I was like, damn, this cocky funny stuff is good for me anyway.
Right.
So that helped me because that was sort of my authentic self helping to come out. And then, so I got pretty good at online dating doing that and good at first dates. And then the next thing that I wanted to work on, and I want to hear your thoughts about this from your journey, was even though I could get some really good dates from online dating, and I'm a writer, so I was always pretty good at messaging, and I could write a compelling profile and get women out on dates, I could never approach. I had really bad approach anxiety. I never had approached a woman in my life up until that point. So the next step for me was, okay, I'm getting better at online dating. I'm getting some dates. My cocky side is coming out, but I couldn't approach women. And that was the next big step I had to take.
Yeah, it's for me, I, for whatever reason, didn't really start with online dating. When I was getting into this stuff, I was just kind of going out to bars a lot with my college buddies. And what I kind of gravitated towards were the also cocky, funny stuff, a lot of the banter stuff, finding ways that I could kind of start flirty conversations with girls at bars, because that's what I was already doing.
Okay.
And I had a social circle that also went out a lot. All my buddies wanted to go out every night in PV and just get totally shit-faced. But, that made me really fat because we'd go out. I wouldn't bring home a girl like they typically would, which would lead to me eating late night Mexican food. And I worked in an office for the first time after college. I was like a golfer in college, so I was always walking, which kept me in like halfway decent shape. But as soon as I started working in an office, with the late night Mexican food and all the drinking, with going out to try to pick up women, I gained like 30, 45 pounds pretty fast.
Whoa.
It just,
Whoa.
the weight just flew on.
Okay.
And, and I didn't really think about it. And there was all these sort of guys out there saying, oh, your looks don't matter. Nothing like that matters. But it does matter when you have wingmen who are much better looking than you. And girls are trying to decide, should I go home with this guy or should I go home with his friend? And, I was hanging out with a bunch of surfer guys. So that and the putting on weight really didn't help my confidence. So I always felt like kind of using online dating as an overweight guy wasn't probably a good look. And I guess I probably tried it. I had profiles on Match and Plenty of Fish and all the sites before the dating apps came out. But it just wasn't super effective for me. So I gravitated more towards the cold approach type of learning and went kind of hardcore on that, which I'm glad I did, because I feel like if you don't learn that approach piece, you don't really get over a lot of your issues, because I feel like guys can hide behind an online game and they can get dates, but typically they're complaining that their dates aren't with the quality of women that they want. And I'm curious if you hear that from your clients, if you found that as well. That's kind of the thing that I hear across the board is, yes, I can do online dating. Yes, I've gotten pretty effective at it, but I just never attract the type of girls that I really want.
I hear that. More often than not, I hear I get okay matches on the dating apps, or I don't get very many, and I can't approach women, so I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Stuck between low quality scarcity in online dating, or is total scarcity, where they can't approach any women at all. And I live in New York City, and I live in a place where I would see beautiful women all the time, at the gym, at Starbucks, at the bar now and then. And I was a single man in his 30s, and I was ready to mingle, but I couldn't do it. And I didn't know why. I remember the day I knew I had to go find a coach. I was at a Starbucks in New York City on a Sunday afternoon, 29th and Park Avenue. And I remember it vividly. This really pretty brunette in a denim miniskirt was sitting in the middle of Starbucks at her table on her phone. There was a seat next to her, and she was totally my type. She looked like Katie Holmes, the actress, who at the time
was my type too.
My crush.
Right.
Before Tom Cruise got his Scientology claws in her, she was my dream girl. Anyway, and I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to approach the first woman in my life. I was 38 at the time. And I got up, I walked over to her, and then I did a U-turn and went to the men's room. And then I came out of the men's room and I all right, psych yourself up, Connell. You can do it. Just go talk to that girl. Just go say hi. It'll be good. And I walked over again, and I started kind of circling her table like a scared shark. And I remember thinking, oh man, she's so pretty. She's so cute. It'd be so great if I could just sit down and talk to her. But there were 2 or 3 other tables around, and I started having this internal dialogue. What if they see me get shot down? What if I get rejected? I'm not even sure exactly what to say. And so I had this inner dialogue. It was like, I tell this story in my book. It's like there was a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. The angel was saying, dude, you're awesome. You're a great guy. Lots of girls like you from online dating. Why? So just go up and say hi to her. And the little devil was like, oh no, she might reject you. You might get embarrassed. So basically the devil stabbed the angel with a pitchfork in my mind, and I didn't talk to her. And she got up and walked out. And I remember her walking out of the Starbucks, and I thought, man, there's the 1,000th attractive, possibly single woman I wanted to approach in my life, but didn't. I was so frustrated, and I didn't understand the internal reasons for that. And I now do understand them, and I'll share those with our listener in a second. But I just remember thinking, I need help. I need somebody to help push me. And that's when I reached out and found my first approaching coach and began to take boot camps and approaching weekends as a student.
Yeah, I was able to take some of the stuff I was learning, from the internet, from different books and forums that were very popular back in the day. And I was able to apply some of that stuff to bars and clubs. But when it came to approaching women in a non-social environment like a Starbucks or, I guess in the community they call it day game, I was way too terrified to do that. And I really wanted to do that because as he told that story, I've been there, thousands of times as well. I just couldn't do it. I even went up and took a boot camp in San Francisco where I did it about 35 times.
Okay.
And
with a
I
coach.
came back, with a coach, with a company.
Right.
I was called Pickup 101 back at the time.
Right.
And even though I was able to do it up there, when I got back to San Diego, I wasn't able to do it. In my because it was like when I was there, I felt like I had all these coaches pushing me, and I was with other students, and it was that support environment was great. But it took me another 2 boot camps. Like I kept going to take more boot camps and became an instructor because I knew that was probably the only way I was going to actually continue approaching. Once I became an instructor, when I had to coach other guys through it, and it wasn't very hard to become an instructor at the time, then I knew I had to do it. So that it was like, and I thought back, I'm like, that is not a effective way to get a student past approach anxiety by taking 3 boot camps and dropping, $10,000 and having to become an actual coach. So, I kind of started looking at ways where I could create that accountability for myself. And I'm curious, like, what did you do to get over your anxiety? Was all you needed that work with a coach? Did the anxiety, because I feel like anxiety is never going to go away, right? It always comes back. But you can get to a point where it feels like excitement instead of anxiety. It's like getting on a roller coaster. When you're not scared of roller coaster, you're still excited to do it, but you feel a little excitement versus when you're a little kid and you're scared to death. You're like, I'm not getting on that thing, no way. And maybe you stand in line, but at the end of the line, you jump out.
Approach anxiety is totally fixable. It's curable.
Support for the Leverage podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. They are the leaders in the below the belt men's grooming and hygiene department. Let me tell you, before I had Manscaped, I was spending way too much time shaving my boys, dealing with that whole area. It was really kind of an annoying thing that I dreaded every couple weeks because, you got to keep it clean. You don't want to be Mr., gorilla hairy guy down there. It's just gross. And what girl wants to come home to that present? If it's a first date and you guys are getting busy and she sees a bunch of nasty stuff, like you're probably disqualified. So if you're not shaving down there, kill yourself. But right after you kill yourself, go out, get yourself the Manscaped 4.0 Performance Package. It comes with this amazing lawnmower 4.0. You can use it right on your balls. Won't hurt. It saves me 15 minutes easily every time I use it in the shower. No mess. It's got this guard on there, and it's got this light that allows you to see exactly what you're doing. And I mean, out of everything on here, the light is probably the best thing because you can really see what's going on down there when in those nether regions, which are hard to find. The Weed Whacker, ears, nose hairs, no problem. This thing knocks them out. Amazing. Comes with this Crop Reviver ball toner. Smells great. The girls love it. And the Crop Preserver ball deodorant. I just feel fresh when I use this stuff. It's great. So the Manscaped 4.0 Performance Package also comes with this amazing bag. They ship internationally for free worldwide. I'm just kind of upset I didn't use them longer before because I spent so much time just using stuff that just like cut me up and it was really uncomfortable to use. And just do yourself a favor and pick up their performance package. Go over to manscaped.com. Use the code LEVERAGE, LEVERAGE, and get that 20% off with free worldwide shipping. I really can't recommend these guys enough for your guys down there. All your guys will thank you, and the women in your life too. So go over to manscaped.com, enter the code LEVERAGE, get that 20% off, free worldwide shipping. I don't care where you are, you need this in your life.
You can vaccinate yourself to it. And worst case scenario is we want to turn into something that, to your point about roller coasters, butterflies, maybe. We want them to feel like butterflies. That's probably healthy to feel like butterflies before you walk up to a pretty girl. Because that means, hey, I've got some skin in this game. I want it to go well. I hope she likes me. Right. So I do think approach anxiety is curable and fixable. I didn't realize it at the time how to do that. I just did what you did. I hired tons of coaches, like 12, 13 different coaches over the course of 5 years. And part of it was because I just wanted to really deeply dive into this river of knowledge in this area. I was fascinated by it. But also it was because I still had my own limitations where, okay, now I can approach women, but only if I paid this guy $3,000
right
for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And think how silly that is. I mean, it's not silly once you understand how the mind works, but giving somebody 3, 4, 5 grand and then having him say, okay, go talk to her. Now I will go talk to that girl. That's not a real, that's not a tenable long-term plan.
Right.
And I feel like basically 80% of approach anxiety is this. 80% of it is feeling or fearing that you are insignificant to women. You're unworthy, unattractive. And once you prove to yourself and know that you are worthy of women, you have a lot to offer, that plenty of women are going to be attracted to you, then that approach anxiety dissolves. However, at the time, I didn't realize that. I thought, oh, I just need more reps, more reps, more reps. And don't get me wrong, reps can lead to some good results. And those results can help flip that story from I'm insignificant and unworthy to I'm the shit, I'm awesome.
Especially if your results are good, right? It'll flip it very fast.
Right.
But if your results aren't good, you're just going to reinforce that.
Right. Well, I had pretty damn good results early on, but even I went down this rabbit hole of them of chasing the result and feeling like I failed or was rejected for women who didn't want to be with me, instead of letting go of the women who aren't attracted to me and just enjoying the women who are, and enjoying those dates or successes or romances. So, but I just to come back just real quick to the true core cause of 80% of approach anxiety, give or take. It's I remember the very first night I went out to approach women. I was 38 years old. It's the first chapter of my book. I'm 38 years old. I'm on a rooftop bar in New York City, and I'd never, ever talked to a woman before from approaching. I'd had plenty of great online dates, and I'd had some real nice successes. However, I had never done it out at a club setting, at a night setting. And that old story I used to tell myself of, Connell, you're not good enough. You're introverted. You're a dork. Sure, women like you on Match.com, but here at the club where all the real beauties are, you're not going to be good enough. That's what I was whispering in my ear. And so I remember that night really well. I was so nervous. Before we went out to start taking action, I had to actually excuse myself. I went into the men's restroom stall and I got dry heaves. I basically had a panic attack.
Yeah. Wow.
I wasn't drinking. It wasn't alcohol. I was totally sober, but I kind of had this panic attack that expressed itself as these dry heaves. And at the time I just thought, oh, stage fright, nerves. I now realize I was looking at approaching women as judgment day on my value and worth as a man. I was about to go out and find out if women liked me or not. And that was a total bullshit story I was telling myself, but it felt true, because whatever you tell yourself is going to feel true, whether it's true or not. So if there's nothing else I share today for the listener, I want him to know that when you go out to approach women, there is nothing at stake. The stakes are low. You are worthy. You're attractive. You're enough. You have core value to women. Whether or not the approach will go well, who knows? A human behavior is unpredictable, but you really want to rewire the software, upload a new software, and realize, hey, wait a minute. I have all these cool habits. I have a cool job. I make amazing French toast. I am a good kisser. I have a lot of worth and value to women. And once you make that internal shift of, oh, I'm significant, I'm attractive, I'm worthy, then the approach anxiety dissolves and it becomes what you described as like roller coaster butterflies, like healthy nerves, but not like, oh my God, penetratingly scary nerves. Does this make sense? And you're welcome to agree or disagree. That's my view. You're a dating coach. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I feel as well. When you encounter a client that's got really, really bad approach anxiety, is it usually a function of, do you well, obviously it's going to depend, but like, can you maybe think of any case studies where it was more of like an inner game sort of issue, kind of what you're talking about, where they've got these stories running in their head and you've got to kind of reprogram that they feel worthy enough? Or is it more of, is there any other routes that you take that can kind of build in more accountability to get guys over the hump? And are you when you're mainly working with guys, is it in person? Because I know you're in New York City.
Right, right. I work with men both in person and more remotely. I work with
Mm-hmm.
guys all over the world. So, but
Right.
I do a lot of in person coaching with men. And I guess it's for men who come to me, and I think people in general, men in general, it at least starts with the internal, the belief about your between the ears, the mindset. And we're all wired to want to be worthy and attractive and accepted and loved. And we're all wired to an extent to be afraid, at least in theory, of, oh, what if I'm not enough? What if women, people, the world doesn't like me? So this is just a human need that all of us have inside of us. With approaching women, sometimes that usually it's a man who maybe hasn't had that much dating success and who's told himself that story. So I do start with mindset. At the same time, as you know, good mechanics, the how-to is really important. You want to walk up and approach with the good eye contact and a good positive energy, value offering energy. But I really do think that 80% of fixing this is rewiring the internal stories. In other words, finding that confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And then 25% of it is, hey, let's get the mechanics. Let's know within reason what to say, sort of how to sort of quote unquote escalate things with a girl in a win-win consensual way that you're both enjoying, and sort of the how-to, the strategy. The big mistake I see most coaches make in this area is they get so focused on teaching guys technique, but they're not fixing what's happening inside. They're trimming the branches, but they're not fixing the root.
Totally.
To butcher a quote from Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. There's a quote in there about you can't like focus on the branches. You gotta fix things from inside the root, which I really believe with approaching and dating is really powerful. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, I was gonna just kind of add to that. I recently took up chess, which I learned as a kid, but never really got into it. And then my wife's dad, so my father-in-law, he's a very good chess player. And as I'm learning chess, I was really noticing the difference between strategy versus tactics. And if you understand the strategy, the tactics can make sense, and you can really utilize those tactics. But if you only have the tactics, then you're missing, I'd say, 80% of the the actual game. And I feel like with dating and seduction, it's the same. There's so many people out there teaching tactics, very few teaching the actual strategy or dealing with the things that matter, like what you're talking about. You got to rewire those stories. You have to come from a place of feeling worthy, because you can use whatever sort of line or tactic you want. She's going to know right off the bat.
Right.
Women are very intuitive, and they're going to be able to tell that, all right, this guy's just got some lines. To use a quote from my grandfather, he called it whipped cream on shit. We were playing golf, and I think it was like his 10th shot on a par 4, and he knocks it in the hole from 100 yards. He says, "Kid, you know what we call that? That's whipped cream on shit." The
Nice.
10 on a par 4. But so I love that. I never forgot that. And I felt like that's what I was initially doing when I was learning all the tactics and, reading stuff from the pickup artists and going out there.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thank you for giving me the title of my next book, by the way. Whipped cream on shit. It's going to be a huge hit. That can't miss.
Can't wait to read it.
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to one final point about technique versus mindset. We live in a world where technique, the how-to, it's very marketable.
Yeah.
And there's certain areas in life where you need really good technique, like, and a lot of it, right? Like I play golf a lot. So do you, right? Look, if you're not doing 74 things right, you're not going to hit the ball very well, right? If you are operating, if you're flying an airplane, if you're a pilot, if you're a surgeon, if you're an engineer, you got to get the mechanics and the quote unquote tools, the mechanics, totally on point. But with approaching women, or even on a date, just having a conversation, all you're doing is connecting and chatting with a woman. There's not no technique there, but there's not nearly as much as guys think. Really, right. You just approach, you chat about her, you talk about you and her, flirt a little bit. There's some technique there, but not a ton, and then see if there's mutual attraction. Because we're walking up to a cute girl and saying hi. We're not landing a 747. We're not hitting a flop shot. off of the 14th green at Augusta National. So let's not simplify things, but let's make it as simple as we can and make it effective. And that's my view on that. I think technique is overrated. I think mindset is way underrated.
Yeah, I feel like what was really helpful for me was just having like only an opening line that I thought was authentic and fun. Something so I could get past the frozenness of not knowing what to say,
Right.
And as long as I had that, I felt confident enough to do it. And I feel like that's what most guys kind of struggle with. Like they freeze and they say, I don't know what to say. And then they do nothing. Right.
Right.
And, for me, it was just kind of doing that, putting in the reps, like we talked about, but mainly once I kind of got over the anxiety and I was able to, when the anxiety wasn't totally crippling, I was able to be more present in those conversations. And that's
Right.
what I felt, once you're able to build that presence, that's when you start really seeing results. Did you, I guess, how long did it take you to kind of approach and get past anxiety where you started seeing results from day sort of approaches?
It took about a year and a half to do it from a confident, centered place. I got some really nice results early on, but I still felt very wobbly. I didn't know. I still felt uncentered. I didn't have that sense of. I didn't have the right story in mind of, hey, women like you, Connell. Lots of them, not all of them, but many of them do. So, and then because I worked with so many coaches, I overdid it. I drank from the fire hose for better and worse. I learned so much theory that would shove me in my head. And instead of walking up and approaching and then being really present and authentic and just talking about each other, which is what I recommend, I walked up to women and I was like, okay, use the cool opener you just learned at the seminar and then do the push pull and then hit her with the teasing joke, but then be vulnerable. And then it was just like, I was like, that's what I was taught. So I guess I'll do that. And it wasn't until about a year and a half in that I was really comfortable in my own skin and enjoying the conversations and, having some nice connections and having some nice things happening on a regular basis. But it took a while.
And when you got into this stuff, what was your goal? Was it just like get past the issues? Like for me, it was, it's embarrassing for me to admit, but like when I read the game, I was like, I want to be the world's best pickup artist. Cause I just thought like having the power to go and, bring a beautiful girl home from a bar, which is something I was already trying to do, was like the coolest superpower ever. And, I was an idiot, 22, 23-year-old, dude just out of college. But I really I was like, that's something I feel like I could be really good at. And that's a skill worth going after. So I became obsessed with the whole thing. But what about you? What was your motivation? What was kind of the end goal?
I wanted to walk up to that Katie Holmes lookalike at Starbucks and do it with relative confidence and comfort and sometimes get a date. It was that simple. Guy named Owen Cook, who that name, he worked with a company called Real Social Dynamics. He said something in a seminar way back in the mid 2000s or late 2000s that really hit me hard. He said, I'm paraphrasing here, until you can walk up to a woman, chat and be yourself, there's work to be done. And all I ever wanted was I just wanted to be able to walk up to attractive women here in New York City and be myself, pardon the cliche, and then, within reason, know how to flirt and get some success that way. But so it was really about overcoming that anxiety, that feeling of nerves. That's all I ever wanted, at least at the start. At the start, that's all I cared about was I just want to do that. Now, I also totally got into a phase where I said, it wasn't about being number one or the best. I just loved the growth I was seeing in myself as a person. I'm a very naturally introverted guy. I'm not the most naturally outgoing person in the world. And so being able to go out on the town night or day and sort of wake up that extroverted side of me, or at least a more outgoing side, and realize that, oh my God, I can get into a state and a confidence zone where I feel 10 out of 10. I feel confident. I feel attractive. I don't care if a woman likes me, although I hope she does. That felt addictive.
Yeah.
And So yeah, I guess I went into this because I wanted to grow into the guy who could comfortably feel confident to approach and also make connections with some really wonderful women and eventually get a really good girlfriend and then be able to choose a girlfriend, choose a partner as much as we can choose people, choose a really wonderful woman from some knowing that I have nice options, but I'm choosing to be with her instead of what most men do, I would argue, which is most men either settle for the best they can get or they're not with anyone. So they're either lonely or they're settling. And I've been in both those places. It does not feel good. So for me, it was about growing to the best version of myself, making some nice connections, and then being able to choose a girl to love and to love me from a nice, reasonable number of options.
I want to talk about two things about that. The first being the sort of addiction to approaching, and then I want to talk about settling because I think that's super important. But I find that, I found that I got addicted to approaching,
Okay.
almost to an unhealthy point where if I didn't approach a girl after a while, I would beat myself up too much because I got comfortable approaching like all the time. But it actually made me get to a point where I was like, I don't want to leave the house because I know I'm probably not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to approach girls all day. That was when I was living in New York City. And there's so many beautiful women walking around in New York City. I was right in Union Square, and you can't walk down a block, at least back in like 2013 without that happening. So it was cool. It was kind of like a superpower where I felt like I could kind of go out and create dates on demand, right? Or at will. But it was also, I feel like I kind of took it a little to the extreme. Did you get into that same sort of headspace, or was it more of
I got addicted to the growth process
Yeah.
and the overall journey. I can't say I ever became quote unquote addicted to approaching. Probably the closest I ever had to going down a road that I'm not proud of, but it's true. I write about this in my book, about how I came from a place of, Tony Robbins has a great line. He says, rejection breeds obsession. And I felt very rejected by women for the first 35 years of my life. So then I got obsessed, obviously, with this area. And that obsessiveness turned into there was a phase where I guess I just went into player mode, right? Where I would hook up with a really cute, attractive woman, and then she might start to really like me, and I might even like her. But then I was focused on, well, who's my next conquest?
Right.
22-year-old college co-ed, check. Who's next? That 22-year-old girl might have had feelings for me and me for her, but I was so focused on what's next in terms of that rush of a new conquest that I broke some hearts and treated a couple of women disrespectfully in that sense, because I was chasing the high of a new love, a new outcome, a new result.
Right.
And the chapter 13 in my book is all about the woman I met who helped kind of cure me of that, for lack of a better term. So no, I never got addicted to approaching. I certainly got addicted to the feeling of, ooh, who's the next new woman I can experience? It was like getting addicted to Baskin Robbins because so many different flavors.
Yeah.
and I don't judge anybody who wants to get dating abundance and date multiple women. I think that can be done in a healthy way. I did it in a way that was, for a while, was just disrespectful to some of the women I was with. And I just feel like, you know what, you've got to treat women better than that. You can't just treat them like a pawn in your quote unquote seduction game. You got to just be better than that, Connell.
Yeah, I also went through a phase where I wasn't proud of, where I was kind of doing that player thing. It was before I was confident enough to tell women I didn't want monogamy.
Okay.
And I feel like that's a pretty common phase for most guys where, you go out, you get over your approach anxiety, you get some results, but you're still not confident enough to really kind of say what you want. And you're afraid if you do tell a woman that you're not interested in a monogamous relationship, or you're just, wanting to keep things casual, she's not going to sleep with you. So you end up, kind of either finding a way to be dishonest about that or push that conversation off. And then you end up sleeping with her. And then sure enough, you're going to go and you're going to do your thing and break some hearts doing that. And that really sucks.
Yeah.
It's not fair. and there's so many women out there who are open to casual things. But what I find with recovering nice guys like you and myself, having those conversations is a big step, because you're like, you felt like you put in all this work to attract this girl, and you don't want to potentially lose all that work you've done. And it's also, I feel, tough because as you're going through this personal growth journey, you're like, if you get a girlfriend too fast, you kind of stop the growth process. Like if a guy has basically been what's the word, celibate, or like, he hasn't been getting laid, he's been celibate, and he doesn't really have any options. Really, all he wants to do a lot of the time is get into a relationship with a girl. Mm-hmm. And that's great, but then typically guys will stop growing, that relationship won't work out, and they're kind of back to the drawing board. So that's always a tough spot that I have to deal with clients with. It's like, listen, you want to get to a point where you have some choice, and you've built the skill set up to the point where you're not just grabbing the first girl, making her your girlfriend, and then starting from square one. So I'm curious your thoughts on that. Have you seen that a lot with clients?
No, I'm fine with the guy getting a girlfriend as quickly as he wants one, as long as he's doing it from a place of, hey, I'm a guy who wants that kind of connection, and as long as he genuinely cares about this woman. Mm-hmm. And as long as he understands that he's choosing her because he wants to be choosing her, not from the old scarcity mindset. So everybody's wired a little bit differently. Yeah. I wanted the abundance. As a guy who felt rejected for 35 years, I wanted to have a rotation and to meet women daytime and nighttime, and then eventually settle down. But some men are wired differently, and they're more connection guys. Their main psychological, emotional need might be just really like closeness, monogamy. They want that. So if the first woman a guy clicks with and connects with turns out to be the one, I'm totally cool with that, as long as he's making a really clear-eyed choice and doing it from a place of, oh no, I want to be with Sarah. I'm not settling. She's fantastic. I know I can get other girls or succeed with other women. So I'm cool with that. At the same time, I just want to know kind of where his head is. And, but yeah, I'm fine with a guy getting on the girlfriend path. I think growing as a man, you can do it in lots of different ways. You can do it as become a really great, amazing boyfriend.
Yeah.
That's not,
I mean, you're going to learn so much in relationships. I've always felt like I learned more in relationships than I did when I was single. But when, and I totally agree, when a guy does really know what he wants, and that is a girlfriend, for sure, go out and get that. The problem that I was more talking about is when a guy who is kind of in similar to our situation, where we wanted more choice, we wanted abundance, we wanted to experience that. I see a lot of guys go into it with that, and then they struggle at first. They don't get the results they want soon enough. And then they revert like, okay, whatever, I'll just take the first girl that sleeps with me. And then they feel like they settled, and that relationship eventually self-implodes, which, ask me how I know. I've done it so many times.
Gotcha. Yes. It's great. Thank you for clarifying that. Well, what I recommend you do, the royal you, is just have a real clear outcome in mind for what you want. What is your place of arrival? If you're going to work on your dating life, where do you want to arrive? Is that arrival a relationship? Or is that arrival, I want 3 really cool, cute women in my life who I'm dating, playing the field, keeping it casual? In other words, dating, playing the field a bit, and having the successes you want. And then if you, on that journey of moving to that, be clear on what your outcome is. Because if I have a client who says, Connell, I want to be approaching and dating 3 beautiful women from online and approaching by Christmas. And then 2 months before Christmas, he says, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to settle down with this girl, Megan. I'm like, okay, tell me more. Tell me why. He's like, well, the approaching thing isn't really working. And, but Megan seems cool. I'm like, okay, now the red flags are going off for me. And I'm like, wait a minute, dude, what's your outcome? What do you want? Like, we all start, you want to, in any area of your life, you want to start with, what is your outcome? What does it look like when this plane lands at LAX, taking off from New York? And you're going to have turbulence along the way. I guarantee you, if you go out at night and approach women, you're going to have nights or days of obstacles, tough nights, emotional state crashes, rejections, a woman you think is into you totally flaking. So we want to prepare and pre-accept this and show what I don't call it this. It just is what it is. Have some resilience. Stay focused on, hey, what's my outcome? What do I want here? And then when a problem arises, the great thing about a problem is these are the things that sculpt our character. Having a problem, facing it, and then overcoming it instead of settling is how you're going to turn into that best man, that man who's fully leveraged himself and has grown into the best version of himself. So great point. Yeah, it starts with clarity of knowing what getting the ball in the end zone looks like for you, for whoever that man is, and just saying, oh, I'm not there yet, but I'm not going to settle. I'm going to be resilient, take different actions, make adjustments, and keep going at it until I get there. And hey, great things, great exciting outcomes there's going to be problems that arise. They're hard to achieve. That's why few people achieve them, because they're hard. So we need to look at those challenges as opportunities for growth and breakthroughs rather than, oh, I'm hitting a wall, I'll just settle for that woman I'm not that into.
Right. Yeah, because when you settle, as we all know, that's the worst thing you can kind of do, because you feel like you're not growing, you're wasting your time, you're wasting her time. Nobody wins from that. But it's right. It's very seductive if you're out there and you're not getting results, or you've kind of beating your head against the wall and just say, you know what, I'm going to focus on work, or I'm going to focus on this, I'm going to focus on that.
Right.
Sooner or later, you'll probably come back to, that root problem, and it'll rear its ugly head.
I talk about this in my new training program, Whipped Cream on Shit. So yeah, learn more about that at whippedcreamonshit.com. I just made that up. Don't go there. It probody doesn't exist. Unless your grandfather, your grandfather.
He put his video up there. The 50-yard shot he hold out for the 10, maybe.
Whipped cream. Welcome to whippedcreamonshit.com. Here's my golf shot.
Yeah. So what happened kind of next in your journey? Once you got to a point where you felt like, you're really cooking with gas, had abundance, dated a lot of women. You're single now, right?
No, I have a girlfriend.
Oh, you have a girlfriend.
I have an amazing girlfriend named Jess.
And never wanted to get married again, or still potentially have that on the table, or?
I never wanted to get married again. I'm open to it. Mm-hmm. It's not something that I ever felt like I have to do this. I am glad in a way that I did it once, because at my age, I'm 51, and last year after the pandemic, I was single and dating. It would have been weird to be a 50-year-old who's never been married. So I was kind of happy I could say, oh yeah, I don't want to be that weird guy who's never been married. But we haven't really talked about it, but I'm open to it. But it's not something that's been like a driving force. My dating outcome now is not get married. It's have a really great, honest, passionate relationship, friendship, relationship, great passion, great respect, basically have the dream relationship, which is not something that I coach guys in, because I haven't done that many times in my life. So I'm working on that myself with my girlfriend.
Do you feel like the skills you've learned to be successful and more attractive and confident, do you feel like there's a lot of carryover into the relationship?
Yes. I think that you never truly stop dating your girlfriend. Mm-hmm. My girlfriend, Jess, and I, if you look at our text messages today, a year into our relationship versus the first few fun, flirty texts we sent when we first matched on a dating app, it looks the same. We're teasing, we're joking, we're flirting. We have date nights. The idea of my whole teaching philosophy in a simple sentence is be authentic and take courageous action. And you can absolutely use that same philosophy in a relationship. Be authentic, be genuine, be honest, tell the truth. Easier said than done, but that's what works. And also there are times when you have to be courageous. You have to have difficult conversations or be vulnerable. And these are all concepts that can be great at the right time in dating, courtship, pickup, call it what you will, but that also you can apply to a really good relationship.
Yeah, telling the truth I think if I look at my overall journey and process, that was one of the biggest things for me. and facing this journey, becoming better with women, approaching your fear, approaching women to get past your fear, and just being honest about who you are and what you want is very, very hard for a lot of guys. It's tough for them to kind of look in the mirror and say, no, I want this, or I don't want that. And, I want this exact relationship and I don't want that.
Right.
And I feel like this journey is very, it's just kind of necessary for a lot of guys to go through that. And most of the guys I see struggling have some sort of lie that they're kind of telling themselves under the surface about who they are, what they want. And obviously that can be pretty toxic. So,
yeah, I think two of the most powerful words a man can use to himself, and two of the sexiest words he can use with a woman, is I want. Knowing what you want. What do you want? When I talk to a man for the first time who might want to work with me, I say, hey, bro, what do you want? What do you want more than anything? And just be really honest with yourself and me. And then on a date, or when you've approached a woman and you're talking to her out of the club, you're basically on a date at that point. That's my view. Is don't be afraid to say, you know what? I want to take you out on a date, or I want to kiss you, or I want us to go somewhere else. It's too loud here. Let's go grab a glass of wine next door. Lead her. Something really powerful internally about knowing what you want. And also, I think women find that very attractive when a guy just sort of lays out what he wants. Do you feel that way? Or how do you feel about a man just kind of owning who he is and what he wants and letting a woman know?
I think it's great because you're going against the grain. Most guys aren't doing that. And that's one of the that's one of the key principles I use a lot. Do the opposite of what everyone else is doing, and you're probably going to be pretty successful. And there's very few guys that are doing that.
The George Costanza dating philosophy. Do the opposite.
That was one of my favorite episodes of Seinfeld.
Tell me more about that. Tell me more about your do the opposite philosophy. I'm really intrigued.
Well, if you look at how most guys are trying to meet women, right? They're online, and they're on those dating apps. They're probably spend a lot of time swiping, and then just spamming girls. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Not really putting a lot of thought into what they're doing. And if you do the opposite of that, which is have the balls to approach them in real life, when most guys can't do that, right away you're standing out. You're doing something radically different. Right. So that's one of them. Going back to what you said, telling her exactly like what you want, what you're looking for, what you want at the right time. Obviously don't want to do that too soon, right? Before, in a premature way to overinvest in the interaction, but being very clear on what you're looking for is very sexy. And it goes both ways. I remember I was in bed for the first time with a girl, and we were starting to hook up, and she stops and she goes, I want to know exactly what you want, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I want. And I was like, wow. This is cool. This is hot. Nice. Yeah. Okay. And she was just so confident in the way that she delivered that. Because obviously you could say that and you could be like, oh, so, how do you like it? What do you want? And that's awful, right? that's not going to turn anyone on. But saying confidently, standing behind what you want, knowing what you want, not being afraid to show that is like true leadership. And, most people are going to get behind that. It'd be, and you're going to find out early if it's a bad fit. Right. And, that's from all the things I've learned is to not waste time, right? You're better off finding out early if it's not a good fit than waiting till later.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Yeah. So, and, you can take the doing the opposite thing, even further. One of the big things for me was when I first got started with this stuff, I was always in the friend zone. And towards the end of my journey, I realized I was the one friend zoning girls, and that was the most effective strategy to have the most abundance. And there's a huge shift there. Obviously, you have to have a lot of women in your life, and you have to have tons of options and abundance. But when you are the one putting them in the friend zone, it drives them crazy because no guy's doing that. Like hot girls aren't being friend zoned by guys very often, so they don't even know what to do with that. They just can't help but kind of start chasing. And that's kind of how I built up a social circle of a lot of fun, cool people where I never had to seduce girls anymore. I would just kind of put them into my social circle, host parties and events and let that do the work because I never hit on them. So it kind of came full circle where I was too scared to hit on women Then I learned to hit on them, and I went through the phase where I hit on a ton of them very poorly and got over my fear of doing it. And then eventually I just never had to hit on them anymore. So, you can kind of just take that George Costanza doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of guys come to me like, oh, I want to learn the social circle stuff. I'm like, well, are you confident enough to walk up to a girl and risk rejection? They're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I just want to do the social circle. I'm like, well, unfortunately, you don't get to do that. That's a necessary sort of process in the evolution. So, not sure if that answers your question.
No, it does. It does. It's basically zagging when everybody else is zigging.
Right.
And yeah, there's an art to that, I imagine. That's an interesting topic that will be discussed in the Whipped Cream on Shit book that I'm working on. But no, I love that. That's my favorite. There is real wisdom in that Seinfeld episode.
Oh, Seinfeld gets it right so often.
Yeah.
If you just look at Jerry and you look at George, and you see what Jerry's doing,
Right.
like he's such a great model for
Right.
how to be attractive. He's got a different girl all the time. He's going on dates. He doesn't really give a shit if it's not working out. Breaks up with them if it's not ideal for him, and
Right.
he's always just kind of not caring too much, which I think is a very important theme. Like if you honestly don't give a shit, there's nothing more attractive than a guy who doesn't care, because he's not needy, he's not attached to the outcome, he just doesn't give a shit. Obviously, you're gonna give a little bit of a shit, but if you can, So
I remember I approached a girl who became my girlfriend at the time. This is 7-8 years ago, but I approached her, and I guess I was accidentally following the Costanza Robbie approach of say the opposite thing, and I just remember. Like she was throwing some fun tests at me, like, hey, are you like really well endowed? And I said, no, I'm like a little baby carrot. I've got nothing down there. I'm like a 5-year-old boy. And I remember cracking some other jokes about how like I'd never talked to a girl before. She was the first girl I'd ever talked to, and I hoped to get my first kiss that night. And I remember she was giggling and laughing, and she said, you say all the wrong things, but she meant it. You're doing this well. She was basically saying you're going against what other guys are always saying and doing. I wasn't trying to impress her. Mm-hmm. I was cracking jokes about my quote unquote small size as opposed to trying to impress women, which a lot of guys do. And she was basically saying, I like that you're doing the opposite of what most guys do. And we ended up eventually getting into a relationship. So there's definitely some wisdom there about doing it the Costanza Robbie way.
I love that. It's about a carrot size.
Yeah. So I'm really small.
And then she's pleasantly surprised, when
right. Yeah. Under.
Wow, it's not a carrot.
Underselling myself. Exactly.
Right. Under promise, over deliver. They say, right.
Right. Yeah.
Do you remember the other Seinfeld episode where George carries around a photo of a model in his wallet?
Of course.
And he drops it at opportune times, and oh, that's my, what was it, like his wife, his dead ex-wife or his ex-girlfriend or something, and
the social proof. He was getting the social proof of, oh, that's your beautiful model ex-wife, mm-hmm. or deceased wife, even though not really deceased. And there's some. Maybe we should do a podcast about dating tips through Seinfeld.
I know, that'd be funny. Way. There's so many episodes that that take these concepts of status and social proof, right? Yeah. And they make fun of it, but you learn it if you can see, if you're paying close enough attention, and maybe you kind of know some of these mindsets to look for.
Right. I never had the Kavorka like Kramer had, but I learned to channel my inner. I'm more of a Jerry dater.
What's the Kavorka?
Oh, the Kavorka is that animal magnetism that Kramer had in one episode, where a woman decided to leave the church to be with Kramer, and she said, "Oh, he has the Kavorka." It's like a wolf animal magnetism.
I don't remember that one. Maybe I didn't see that one.
It's early, one of the middle seasons.
I'm gonna go back because I thought I'd seen every one multiple times, but I really don't remember that one.
A lot of fun dating episodes.
And then you get to see Elaine and her trials and tribulations. So
absolutely, it's an amazing show. It really holds up.
Well, hopefully we've converted some of our podcast listeners to Seinfeld fans by this point. And
Right.
they're like, yeah, I'm not going to listen to this shit anymore. I'll just go watch Seinfeld. But
I don't blame them. It's a great show. It's a great show.
So, Connell, it's been so awesome having you on and talking about all this stuff. I'd really like to check out your book after hearing some of these stories. And where can guys, find the book, find your podcast, find about it working with you?
Yeah, you can go to datingtransformation.com, which is where my podcast is housed, along with all the places where you can get a podcast. It's called Dating Transformation, but they can listen to it at datingtransformation.com. And my book, Dating Sucks But You Don't, you can just go onto Amazon, type in Dating Sucks But You Don't, and you'll find it on Amazon or wherever you get your books.
Cool. It's been fun. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom.
No, my pleasure, Robbie. Thank you so much for having me. It's a really fun time.
Thanks for listening. If you want more, go to innerconfidence.com and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for the latest episodes.